All right, you are now tuned into the Rotated Views podcast. I am your host, Jimmylee, Velez. I'm here with the original crew, Gabe, Goose, Heck, and Manny. The final show. In this episode, the original crew comes back together one last time to say thank you and farewell. We wrap the episode up with quotes from Paulo Coelho and William Shakespeare. Guys, if you're new, thank you for joining us. Don't forget to download and subscribe. We did drop a new episode every Tuesday morning for your listening pleasure. Kicking things off, gentlemen, this is the final one.
This is it.
Woo!
This is
7 years in the making. 333, recording on Good Friday, April 7th. We got a bunch of 7 balloons floating everywhere. Little trophies for no reason. All right, so here we are. If you didn't know, 7 years ago, April of 2016, we recorded, or no, I should say we published our very first episode. We were recording since I think like late February, March, and then when we finally put something that was somewhat decent together, we published it in April of 2016. Here we are, 2023, episode 333. You guys all know I'm into numerology. It's the 7th year. We're recording on April 7th. I'm pumped. I can't believe it's been 7 years. It's kind of wild. And if you guys want a lot of detail, a lot of sort of information or background, maybe not a lot, but enough and more than what we're about to say today, check out episode 332, where it's titled The Big Announcement. And we sort of break down...
like a retrospective sort of.
Yeah. I mean, it was honestly... And to sort of put that all, into perspective or into one sentence thing, it is I guess you can say it was just the perfect way to end a good thing. A lot of times these things we see, shout out to Tom Brady, but extending things a little too long, maybe 1 or 2 years too long. And it's just like, for what?
Yeah.
And I felt like we essentially won the Super Bowl, and we're just going to literally drop the mic right on that. I think we did what we were supposed to do with the Rotated Views podcast project. With that being said, that does not mean that we will not, join forces again in the future to do other things. It's just we 100% agree and believe. We went above and beyond. So if you go back to 332 or the original show, you'll know that our goal was literally 10 episodes. Yeah. Here we are. These things cross your mind. For me to say this never crossed my mind is not true. Mm-hmm. It crosses your mind because you want it to be right. Yeah. And you want to nail it just right. It's actually harder than you think. And I think the only other people that could, not only other people, maybe people who can relate or you can relate to this is going into retirement. Sure. Like trying to nail the exact perfect timing and year it is to retire, right? Yeah. And it's just like, did I retire too late? Did I do it too early? Yeah. And this is one of those things we're a firm believer. If you guys don't know, please take a listen to all of our podcasts. But me, Goose, and Heck are brothers. Manny's my cousin or our cousin. And Gabe is the friend of the family who is now family, right? But in those episodes, you'll know our father passed away from pancreatic cancer back in 2012. The reason why I bring that up is because he passed away at the tender age of 54. We always talk about, it's like, when do we, and my dad busted his tail off day in, day out since the age of 7 or 8. He's been working on a farm all the way through 54. And then you see it's like, someone puts on all this time, all this effort, and then sort of life is just taken from you. Mm. And so I genuinely do believe my dad enjoyed his life. But what I'm trying to say is I just want to make sure we experience someone face that. And I'm like, I want to enjoy every aspect of it. And so I think part of that is actually recognizing when it's time to hang something up on a good note. Our stats, we read them off on episode 332. Our first year, we had 49,000 downloads. In the first 2 months of this year, we had 46,000 or something like that for 2016 for the entire year. And for the first 2 months in 2023, we already have 49,000. So our numbers are up. I have a large list. Actually, people are still hitting me up as guests to join us. Our money's good here. It's literally everything we're saying in episode 332. Please just go look at it. this is just perfect. So everything just lined up. It's one of those things where I personally felt like we did what we were supposed to do with it. We not exhausted. I just think if this was going to be like 10 quadrillion billion downloads, it would have happened in 7 years.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
And so it's just like, all right, you know what? At the top, we've literally interviewed everybody who wanted to be on in the town, in our family, friends. We brought people back together. We highlighted local businesses, their products, their service. It's 100% something to be proud of. Again, I don't want to stretch this out to 10 years and we're just all sitting here like, all right, what do you guys want to talk about? What are you trying to do? Right? And that's what happened. This is sort of what happens when you go back to, yes, we're the personal development, sort of motivational, inspirational, and then highlight, small business, right? When we know people who get into a niche that's so tight that they can't even go past 7 episodes. So that's like the great thing about the Rotated Views podcast. It's sort of, had its niche, but at the same time, it was open-ended. The other thing that we, pride ourselves on, and I'll go around with the first question really, was that we're family friendly. Yeah. We had 1 or 2 guests or 1 or 2 things that may have slipped on through that probably wasn't, the most intelligent or, the smartest or the most family friendly. However, if you go back to episode 332, you'll know what our intentions were. Yeah. And I stand still proud on that is still who we are and what we represent.
Yeah.
All right. So with all that being said, let's talk briefly what started the podcast 7 years ago. Is essentially what you see right here. However, it was in a backyard and a fire pit in the center and a bunch of cigars and great conversation. Honestly, we did that so many times and such good topics. And it was at a crucial, I think, point in all of our lives where we were either just getting out of school or just starting a family or just looking to invest in our first homes or whatever it was.
A bunch of milestones was happening.
Yes, a bunch of milestones were happening, and so the conversations were just brilliant. And so we wanted to, and then we started discussing, like, how can we capture these conversations?
And there was always different variations of all 5 of us at some point. Like,
it would be like me, Heck, and Gabe out back one time, and we capture, like, me, Manny, and Heck, or something like that.
And then you used to go chill at Mikey's when he was
and then me and Gabe would go to Goose when he had, when he was over closer to us. Yeah, and it's just like, it's so funny because like driving in, I was just thinking, I'm like, oh my gosh, we started in my house in this little tiny 100 square foot 10 by 10 room that had this monster unnecessary desk in it.
Biggest desk ever.
Biggest desk ever.
It's about the size of this table here.
Yeah, literally. And then like we're all like pressed up against the walls, and then we couldn't turn on any fans or air conditioning because the sound system was great because it picked up all this sound, but it would have that buzzing gray noise in the background. So anyway, I'm just picturing like sweat like literally just dripping
down,
and
you
just,
couldn't
like,
open the windows because you hear
man.
the cars driving by or the people yelling in the summertime, like
or the crickets.
The crickets were so loud. Yeah. All the way fast forward to Goose opening up his business for us to finish our way here in a way more open space that's way more conducive to not only bringing guests on because it was an actual establishment and recognizable and like something to flag them down and not like you on the bend of some random home in Bucks County that you just flew by and his wife's inside like breastfeeding their newborn. It was a mess. Anyway, so there was a lot, but I want to go around the horn. Heck, we'll start with you. So again, we have Heck, Manny, Goose, myself, and Gabe. What was it doesn't have to be the most memorable. We don't have to go all exaggerated. But what was one moment of the podcast of the past 7 years that you remember that just sticks out in your head? One of the shows or an experience?
The experience overall, the general experience, like it was unbelievable. Like just to gather around and start off with your topics and how we started. Again, we always go back to how we started, and it's just crazy that the nonsense we were just saying, like we didn't have no topic. We were going like off the rockers on our first episodes. Like it was wild to have it down all formulated and to like so much organization and the growth that we all got out of it and stuff like that. It was just, 7 years, it's crazy. Like I was telling my kids today, they're like, oh, why are we going to Dino's shop? And I'm like, well, we're celebrating our 7th year in our final episode of the podcast. They're like, 7 years? Nova goes, Dad, how old was I? I was like, you were 2 years old, Nova.
Yeah, that's crazy.
You were 2 years old when we started this podcast. She's like,
more than half her life.
oh my gosh.
Yeah.
She's like, oh my gosh, that's crazy. So, I mean, like, it's just, again, the memories about it, like going to other locations to do the podcast, having people coming into us, even starting the whole FaceTime thing, or it wasn't FaceTime, it was more Skype, doing that for the first time. It was like, that was pretty wild, right? Having people from all over the place, and just and how we grew as a family all together to the final episodes where we're doing the challenges together, right?
Yeah.
So it all worked out, and it's just an amazing experience. Thanks, Jim, Gabe, Goose, Manny started with us, and you're here today with us now. And it's like it was definitely a blessing and an experience all wild, all together.
I love it. All right, Manny.
So for me, starting when it initially happened, I was like nervous, like, what am I going to talk about? Who wants to listen to me? You know, like, that doesn't. So it was probably 3.5 years that I was a part of it. So to look at it, there was one episode in particular was shout out to Jerry Reeves. I want to say it was the first on location that I remember.
Yeah.
Was right down the street.
Oh, yeah.
Inside his shop, and I remember him being so nervous.
Yeah.
And I was like, I would look at people, and he was the first time I thought about it. I was like, it's your story, man. What are you nervous about? Like, it's just interesting all on its own. And that was the first time I was like, wow, Jim's got something going on. Like, you know, what his bigger vision and picture is coming to fruition. And then to listen, you know, the last 3.5 years to you guys and the consistency for you guys to continue week in, week out, no matter who came, who didn't, and you just showed up. And that kudos to you guys to just continue to do it.
That's crazy.
Every week. You know, consistency's hard.
Yeah.
And you guys were able to do it for 7 years. So that episode in particular, just happy for the opportunity to be here to kind of open it up and close it out all at the same time.
Heck yeah, man. Thank you for joining us. Yep. Goose?
One of my favorite episodes is when we brought all the family on board. All the kids were like, they were like jumping in. So we did. That was a pretty long day, extended day. But it was like we sat down and did like every family interview like one by one. And
Jim did that for almost, sat in that chair for almost, I don't know, 3 hours almost.
Yeah,
it was ridiculous.
Long.
And like I just remember like Ava's like just kind of talk, like the kids were talking, telling their story. They had no clue what they were, but like 10 years from now, they're gonna listen to that and like, oh my gosh, like I was on, like you guys had, we were on this show that you guys had, and this is what you guys used to do every week. And it was cool for them to experience what we do on a weekly basis, right?
That lives forever too, by the way.
Yeah, the microphones in their face, like we didn't have enough headsets, but it was like just a setup, and they were able to like kind of, and we were here at the shop. That was just an experience for them as well as for us. But then, dude, like Manny said, with the consistency, I can't even say that word right. It was like there's all of our schedules. We all got like our own personal lives, and everyone has like crazy schedules. And as the kids were getting older, it was getting more. And then Jim had it, like Cade was like, you know what I mean? And heck, you guys had other kids in between. So like it starts to like, now they're all into like sports. Now you don't have one kid in sports, you have two, 3, 4, 5, like heck. Right. But so 7. It's like it gets pretty crazy, right? So and even for me, like we would have it. We would record every Monday night, but I would be in here like 2:00 in the afternoon, cleaning the shop, setting up 2 in the afternoon because I'm gone and I'm not coming back till 7:30, 8 o'clock, right as we're about to like kind of. So just setting up the shop, making sure everything was like set up for when you guys came, because sometimes I couldn't even make it. But it was just the whole thing in the whole was like an experience, a life learning. Like I know Gabe like learned how to mess with the panel, the board, or whatever. Like
I know what I was doing.
Yeah, and then same thing with like setting up. Like I didn't mess with nothing, no electronics and setting up, but breaking down. Like we had like this little system, like this rhythmatic system where like Jim's the host, so like we're done. He's still talking with the guests, and we're breaking things down as fast as we can in the most organized way, where things aren't like just thrown in a box. And that's something that just like organically happened. It wasn't like, yo, heck, you do this, you do. It was just something that organically happened, and it just so it developed like obviously we were a team, but we became like a bigger, grander team in those like. And now I'm just talking behind the scenes stuff, like so. The whole experience is amazing. It's gonna be missed, Like now
absolutely.
it's like it was like a weekly thing. Almost like people go to church on Sundays, go to church on Sundays, and you change that day. It's like it just throws you off. You've been doing it for so long.
Still go to church on Sundays, guys.
Still go.
But it's
Definitely like something would be missing.
It's definitely gonna be. It's definitely
hole in my heart.
a missing part in a weekly basis.
Awesome, Gabe.
So one thing is like it's funny because I was just thinking it's something that we actually kind of got lost into time.
Whoa.
Because it was like early on we were messing around with like the equipment, we were trying to mess around with all this stuff, and then like I think I was doing some testing or something, and then me and you were in the office, like it was like a Saturday or something, and we wound up just talking, and we wound up like just hit record, not realizing that it wasn't properly set up, and we had a whole like 45-minute essentially podcast that was impromptu completely.
Yeah.
That it was completely recorded horribly. And it was like one of the first time I was ever, especially early on being in his spot, it was just like talking and like him asking him legit questions, which that usually doesn't happen properly. But being in that seat and then like unfortunately being lost in like, something that nobody would actually ever, I think I have it somewhere, but it's like, it's almost unlistenable, but it's like
lost files.
But it's like, it's
files,
something that like it's a memorable moment because we and you both agreed that was like actually an excellent like thing that happened.
The
and
content was fire,
and it just like unfortunately got it
was not captured.
So it's like a good but unfortunate moment.
I'm just like I feel like enraged right now.
Sorry, I mean to bring down the.
So
mood.
I think that's interesting. Initially, I wanted to say the guest because just really quick. Obviously. Before I say the guest, though, I think it's just the team here. Everyone was already said, so I don't want to be redundant. Is everyone believing in something in one person's dream that turned into two person's dream that turned into 4 or 5, whatever, and it was just like it became our thing, right? It started off, I think, as one person, 2-person thing, and then I think like it was like that fuzzy like, oh yeah, we'll do it if you start it. Right, but then it still has to take one person to actually put the stuff together and actually get the ball rolling. But to Goose's point, it's amazing. 7 years, like everyone's showing up.
Yeah,
that's what's baffling to me. It's just like no one complained, no one said anything. It was just showing up. Yeah, there was things here and there to miss, but it was just. That's wild. And then the other thing that like sort of compounds that thought is the guests. Like the guests actually believing in the Rotated Views podcast, showing up on time, being professional about it. Yeah. And guys, all the stuff that we recorded, that's not to mention all the headaches and heartaches that we went through for guests that never even came on, but all the stuff that you have to deal with on the side that I've only shared like a portion of. And so to actually get someone on the show is one thing, or someone interested in the show is one thing. To actually physically get them here and record their episode for them to share their story is like a whole other thing.
Yeah. It was actually pretty cool too because the guests, when they would come in, they were so pumped and they're like, "Wow, you guys have like legit stuff. Like you guys have this thing going." Like they were surprised at the setup that we had. Yeah. It was like to them, it was like these guys are like real professional, and then they were super excited. They were like, "Oh, when does this launch?" And then they were just excited all over again to know that something was launching with their story or their background or whatever case the episode was about. But just to see their excitement and to have to believe in us to produce and set something up, Gabe producing, setting this whole thing up, it's just like mind blowing that these guys, these guests were like so into it as much as we are. Like it was
and I was thinking about it too because it was just funny because we're used to seeing the equipment on a weekly basis.
Right, yeah, exactly.
So them coming in like always being so excited, like, oh wow, you have this whole professional setup. I was like,
yeah.
To me, it still seems like almost like the first day of like we just almost threw this all together. It was like, but it obviously it's an enhanced version of that, but it's like still like we see it on such a regular basis that for us it's not an uncommon thing to see such a setup like this. But it's just funny.
So for me, when it hit, and I was like, man, the podcast is really something. When somebody was on. And I think 2 or 3 weeks later was a business owner. They were just starting a landscaping business. And I'd listened to the podcast back, and I was like, oh, you know what? I'm gonna kind of give back. I'm gonna go ahead and give somebody my business. I called him up, and he was like, hey, man, I can't do it right now. I'm busy. And I was like, busy? He's like, ever since we did the podcast, he's like, people have been hitting me up locally. And it came to be like, wow, this is the power, the voice that the podcast had and the reach that it had, locally and maybe even further. But I know locally, more specifically, was like, wow, it really is reaching people, and people, when given the opportunity, will reach out and help one another, which was cool, which was the whole point of the podcast, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
All right. So around the horn again. Heck, we'll start with you. How has the podcast? It could be either way. Maybe taught you something professionally or personally, something that it could be simple.
It just showed me more responsibility and be on top of things.
Yeah.
And like you said, it was scheduled things. So it was like every Mondays or Tuesdays, whenever we scheduled it, it was like we're always here. And like Goose says, we come in, we set it all up, and it was just a bond, I guess. I don't know, like the brotherhood to say.
Yeah. Manny?
Kudos to you guys again, the consistency to come week in, week out, and for everybody kind of believing in the larger vision of what it could be, to help people locally and to get the word out about their business or whatever service that they're providing. It's cool. You see people online do this stuff all the time, but to then have it actually happen and have people benefit from it is pretty cool.
It's awesome. Goose?
Yeah, so like the easiest part is, right, or the most fun part about this whole thing is talking.
Yeah.
The hardest part is coming up with the conversations that Jim comes up with, right? So he does this like every week, comes up with the itinerary, comes up with all this stuff.
That's not easy, guys.
No, yeah.
So it is not.
I've tried and it's not hard.
Yeah, so the learning curve is like, now I listen to other podcasts, right, and they have these good conversations, and I'm like, the host came up with something like this.
Sure. Started it,
and actually, like, it could be a point, and then sometimes it drifts off to something else. But it's to start a conversation. Yeah. But the easy part is conversing. Like, once you start picking something that's your niche, and you go off on it, you go on a tangent, and like some people, and you learn about that person too. That was like the fun part. Like then, like I was saying to Jim, the hardest part is for Jim to come up with that stuff to list all the guests and have them organized, and then when they don't come or they reschedule, just to have it on an organized basis and come. So like for me, that's my learning thing, was like, dude, nothing's easy. It might seem easy. We probably made it look easy, but dude, this wasn't easy at all. And it was like, and we put this together, like obviously Jim leading the reins, but like we put this together and we kind of just like it molded. It just happened. Like I keep saying, it happened organically, but like. It's not easy though, and it's like Heck was saying, the team, we're all like on the same page. We all have the similar mindset. So we're just gonna make it happen regardless of what like it's gonna take. So like my whole learning thing is like, dude, you gotta like rely and trust your team. Yeah. Right. Without your team, like none of this could. It could happen, but it wouldn't happen as smoothly or as successfully. But like the whole thing is like trust your team, like and like don't think you have it all under control either. Like just give someone a job, give someone like a piece of something to take care of. That way it makes things easier on you. Like we were talking about when we did the challenge. Like there's certain things like you might need help on certain things that you just realize you thought you can take on your own. And then all like mental stuff, like as like with the exercising and all that stuff, and Manny keeps saying is being consistent, like all that, everything, and that's all that stuff is what I've learned with the whole like the past like 7 years of this group being together.
I love it. Gabe?
So, to be honest, when we first started having this conversation about even doing this scared me. Yeah. Like just doing this, because I've never done anything like this. I mean, I've done mess with like equipment and stuff too, whatever, but never like to this degree. Yeah. Let alone the fact that I had to set up everything else on the back end and not screw that up.
Yeah.
But fast forward to like one of the other things we did outside of the podcast was your I think your college buddy. What helped produce his
Devin.
His
that was a book.
Complimentary to his audio version of his book, whatever.
Right. Yeah.
And I did like a bunch of projects on the side, and then eventually, me and you did separately your motivation files, and we wound up doing the second version of
using this equipment. That's right.
And wound up using all
Forgot
this.
about that.
And so like all that's like and then we eventually added the cameras. It was like all this stuff is like compounded. It was like definitely enhanced everything that I was like completely scared of. Because even like the video part, I was like, I don't know how they're gonna do that.
Yeah.
Jim, quick question. And I know we're getting off topic here, but how long did it take you? How much brain power did it take you time during the week to just come up with it? Because there's an itinerary, full page.
Yeah.
How much effort, and just to give people who are going to try this whole podcasting thing and really give it some sort of structure, how much actual brain power and time did you have to do? You did take on a weekly basis to set this up, and I'm talking guests, relaying with them, take it all into consideration.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on what the show was, right? So if the show was just the guys, and I knew it was just the guys, and I had to actually come up with a single topic that was cohesive and made sense.
Right.
The point is that you want to put something quality together. And so in my mind, I always had multiple ideas flowing.
Yeah.
And so I already knew the good part is how I mentioned earlier, is that we're sort of based off of personal development, and I'm well read, I guess you can say. So I always had a topic ready to rock and roll. Right. It was just breaking it down. And so honestly, 10 to 15 hours, probably 20
with a guest.
Hours with the guest. Yeah. Like if I'm actually thinking on a, drawing it out, thinking about it, and then it sort of dwindled down once you start getting better and better. Right. And you become sharp, and then you have a template, and then you just like boom, boom, boom. Because me figuring out what worked, this wasn't always, I had an itinerary, but not in a specific format. And then you find the format that works.
Because this did change a few times before we got to like
several times. And then we hit, and then also the point was to sort of stay open to this being changed, where before I would get crazy over having to hit each question. Like, no, hold on, we got to go back.
All right.
Where then just allowing the conversation to just happen and allow it to be a little bit more fluid. So it's going to take a lot of hours. And then to Goose's point, what he was saying, I invested a lot of time. I'm back and forth over the phone, text messages. Some people wanted to get interviewed. Like they themselves asked to get interviewed over the phone first to see if they thought that I thought they were a great fit.
Right.
So it's a lot of extra hours that you're putting in.
That nobody knows about, by the way. They would just show up. And Jim, meanwhile, put in, 4, 5, 6 man hours of his own time just to get the person on there. It's crazy.
Or they essentially are a no-show or cancel the night before. So I'm then coming up with content on the fly, essentially, within hours, waking up, super early, a couple hours early, just to get because I valued everyone else's time. We already had this scheduled. Yeah. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, guys. And I know a lot of times it was frustrating for the guys because, I gave a guest always, essentially my rule of thumb was giving them 2 chances. It didn't matter what the reason, whether it was good, bad, they BS'd me or whatever. I gave them one more shot. It depends. Like if they reached out to me to saying that they couldn't. If they just never responded, you're done first shot. You're done. Right. This whole thing's over. We've had people say they fell asleep. They forgot. So rude, dude. And now when you go back thinking, like we put in all this time and effort on the back end of everything, right? And you're like, oh my gosh. Now you're saying when someone canceled, like I know some of the guys used to sort of give me hell for like giving someone maybe another chance or whatever. But a lot of times it's because, dude, I got to come up. I'm the one that has to come up with additional information. So I would push it off another day. I'm like, can you guys do Wednesday? Can you guys do Thursday? Whatever, because it's so much time, sweat equity that goes into it. And for someone to just say, I want to still do it,
Right.
Because those times you've messaged us like that morning of and like, okay, they're not canceled or whatever it is. And you're like, I might send an itinerary later on. And you somehow figure it out.
Something out within a couple hours. And
within right before like we're going, an hour or two before we go live.
People don't realize we had like a bunch of other stuff set up. Like the following week would be like a holiday week.
Sure.
So me and Gabe were already doubling up. So I couldn't push one off because then it domino affected a whole month's worth of work.
On top of trying to build your own personal career to make sure that you can still feed your family. You know what I mean? So it's crazy.
This is all separate
from what your real day-to-day life is, right? It's extra.
Exactly.
So,
I think for me it was more of a like a leadership thing. It really does. The leader sets the tone, and I'm the leader for this. Goose is the leader for his business. You're the leader for the things you do and the things you do and the things you. Everyone's a leader for. But for the podcast, I was a leader for this. So in my mind, I'm going to set the pace. More than likely, 99% of the time, the people who are on your team, they're not going to exceed you. They're not going to exceed because it's, first of all, it's your dream, your vision, right?
Yeah, right.
And so you're setting the tone. So I got to go 100 miles per hour if I want the guys to go 40.
Right.
You got to put in your mind, if you're listening to this and you think you're going to be a leader, or you want to be a leader, you got to understand that the people, your team's going to do half of what you do.
Correct.
So you have to set the tone and go, all out to a specific extent and then cut that in half, and then that should be whatever you actually expect from the team. So there was times where I was actually getting frustrated with the guys here about X, Y, and Z. Could have been randomly, and then I'm thinking, like, whose fault is that?
Right.
That's your fault, actually. And so, like, really, I got to be mad at myself for certain things. That was very seldom, I might say, but again, a growing thing. So for me, it was a leadership thing that I've applied on with my family, at work, whatever. It's all applicable. So. Again, dealing with people, being comfortable with another thing. Everyone who gets on a podcast is one thing you quickly hear is your own voice is probably more than likely irritating to yourself. So when you hear it, you're like, oh my gosh. But then as you do it so many, again, we're 7 years deep. You then become just comfortable, or not I don't even know if it's comfortable. You don't care. It doesn't
even
bother
you anymore. Yeah, exactly.
It's because you realize. That's a very superficial thing to think about, where that the message is a little bit deeper, a lot a bit deeper, and is more meaningful. And what's the impact of what you're actually driving here? Is it that your voice that irritates you, or the powerful, positive impact message that you just delivered that just got downloaded 700,000 times?
Sure.
Right? My voice sucks. It's true. All right, so when you think about the last 7 years, once again, we'll go around the horn. Maybe what's one or two things you would love for people to think about when someone says the Rotated Views podcast, or maybe when you yourself look back in a year from now, what's one thing you want to either people to think about or yourself to?
I'd say look at us and see complete success.
Yeah.
Like the way, again, we go back to the way it started and how we're ending. It's complete success. I just want people to realize that we set a promise to each other and we kept it. And then the bond that we have now, it's inseparable.
Yeah.
So I just want everyone to if you're gonna do it, go all in and don't just do half the job.
Yeah. Manny?
My perspective's totally different. I realized probably halfway through this not for me. I don't like the sound of my own voice. And just to admire the fact that it's not as easy as it may look. Especially if you don't have a production team. You are the production team, you're the management team, you're the point person. It is not that easy. And then you're dealing with egos. And to internalize that as the leader, Jim, kudos to you. I'm sure you were frustrated a lot. Like, man, I'm doing all this, and you would squash all those feelings and have them put in the pit of your stomach and move on and say, okay, this is for the greater good, or this is the whole point of this whole thing. It's just not that easy. And again, for people looking at it thinking like, oh, you just hit play and just talk. It's not that easy. It really isn't. So a lot of time and effort went into a successful podcast. So kudos to you boys.
Just to jump in real quick before Goose talks, just so you know, like when you're thinking about that, think about all the forms of communication someone can have with you, and now amplify that by the 20 guests that are on the waiting list or wanting to be on the show, whether it's Instagram Messenger, Facebook Messenger,
all of them,
your phone, your email, your texting. All those are all hitting all at the same time, or even in the comment section, or on our website, which we had I had an old school blog from 10 years ago that is set. For whatever reason, our podcast gets published there, and people are commenting on that. Anyway, Goose, what about you?
Going with what you guys are both saying, it's Manny and Jim. It's definitely isn't easy. I know, I hear people all the time, oh, I should do a podcast. I think I'm good at just talking, whatever. I'm like, in my mind, I'm like, you probably are, but how long is it gonna go? Is it gonna be consistent? Or are you gonna do it? Those are the hard parts. Like we were talking about earlier. You can come up with topics, but then there's topics to run out of topics. When we were doing our
challenge,
the challenge, it was one of our goals, right? Or what we were thankful for. That was easy, the first week. And then when you start thinking about what you can't repeat it, what are you thankful for? You're like, oh, smokes. And then it just starts coming so then you really got to put the thought, and it's a shame. You have to think about what you're thankful for, right? So then when people are like, oh, yeah, I got this, and you're like 5 episodes deep, and then you're like dry, and then what are you gonna do? Just give it up?
Yeah.
Like, so it's definitely not easy. It's pretty hard. And then like, what I'm grateful for with this, it was I had some of my customers, clients come on the show. They like kind of told some stories and opened themselves up to stuff that I didn't even know, and I know them for years.
Right.
So I got to know people in a more of an intimate setting like this, where you get to like they open up.
Right.
And then I got to be on other people's podcasts. So like, oh, you guys have a podcast, whatever. And I'm sure Jim's been on other podcasts, and it kind of like opened this up individually. Like, oh, you're a barber, I want you to be on my podcast and talk about your business or whatever. So it kind of like gave us more opportunity. Like if it wasn't for this, they wouldn't like have me on, and they know my experience on being behind the microphone.
Right.
So it just kind of like gave me an opportunity in those senses, and like all of us, I guess, too.
Sure.
But yeah, it's just like the experience in itself, like,
Yeah.
and the open like relationships that we made along the way.
Yeah.
Like, dude, it's crazy. It's crazy.
Gabe?
So, but to speak on that real quick, it was like that was an honor. Like people we had as guests that created their own podcast, they're always interested.
It's
inviting
amazing.
us to go onto their podcast
Yeah.
and talk about, obviously everything we do here. And
Or people saying you were my motivation
Yes,
to starting
exactly.
my podcast.
Yeah.
and inviting us to be part of what they created on their own. But to answer your question of like what people take away from it, I hope it's like essentially the main theme of what we always had is be a better version of yourself.
Yeah.
Is to always strive to be better. Which is why we started inviting guests is to see their stories and see how they started from wherever and made a bigger impact on whatever the community or whatever they were trying to do, and actually tell that story behind how it is, and then and that's what we've always talked about is just always be better.
I love it. I think for me, what would be awesome is sort of what Goose is saying as well, is it's like people appreciating the work.
Yeah.
You appreciate the hustle. You appreciate the commitment. You appreciate the persistency. Mm-hmm. And you also not even appreciate it, but you realize that is 10 times harder than you think to just say 333 episodes, to just say 7 years, to say literally hundreds of guests on top of everything else, not just lousy value. We're talking about quality episodes where people got emotional. They shared things, what Goose is saying. They shared things they didn't share with the rest of the world. They got inspired to start their own businesses. We had people say our podcast gave them the confidence to start their own business outside of podcasts.
Right.
Talking about, I remember somebody started a landscaping, a cleaning business, and like a detail business, whatever. And there's like several others.
Like charities or whatever.
Yes, charities came out of this. Like, just think about what came and what will come out of this. And we talk about this sort of earlier. It was, I think Manny said it, who knows how long this is going to go on for. Like, this can be infinitely listened to for the rest of mankind, because it's captured and it's placed. And now it's not only placed, it's placed on layers on multiple platforms. So it's out there in the ether essentially forever. But yeah, I still think it's like locally, like hands down the GOAT. And it's like when people think about it, it's like that was a classic time. Like that brick of 7 years, that brick of, it's like people can say, oh, I was on that, or whatever. Or I shared a moment with these people. And then the other thing too, like even me myself talk about things that sprouted from that was like the Blessed Lifestyle brand, and the Motivation Files Part 2, right? Like all that stuff came from, again, me building confidence even within what I established and then what I can do as a leader, as an entrepreneur, and things like that. It's just a very cool thing to think about. But I think at least locally the GOAT, but I would hope just appreciation of the work. It's like think about what you've done. What's one thing you can name you've done consistently for 7 years?
There's not
Think
much.
about that. There's not much. I'm telling you right now, there's not much. Outside of just being alive, right? No, seriously, there's people who like come and go with hobbies, with things. Think about it, truly think about it, and then also what was and who we impacted through that. Okay, so let's just go around the horn. what's something you're looking forward to, I guess, in the future, or something, the people listening can look out for you, to follow you, and something to just for growth, I guess, aspects of this whole thing. Maybe share one or two things that you're looking forward to, and then possibly how the audience can connect with you.
I'm looking forward to, again, like you said, this is the end of this project. Who knows, we might have something else coming up, something we're brainstorming, whatever. Just look forward to hanging out with the guys, being with the guys all over again at some point, and not be the end of us being together.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it.
And then handles.
Handle, Instagram is Velez709, and Facebook is just Hector Velez.
Awesome. Manny?
For me is just to see, what the next project is. You guys have accumulated quite the network. There's another kind of platform that you guys can distribute content on. It might not be in this form or fashion, but you have video content that you can put out, or at least you know how to put it out there. So just kind of seeing you guys from a distance. And then for me, I don't do social media. Boo, old man, right? But I got a new venture with my buddy, and if you want to check us out at bristolapparelco.com, just check out some of your apparel needs.
I love it. Goose?
I'm trying to think, man, because, dude, with this whole, I learned so much with every episode. You learn, a little tiny nugget from every episode. And, as far as me branching off to anything, I'm just still going to focus on the barbershop, focus on my family. But, like Heck said, this is definitely, not the end of us uniting as one for, a project. And whatever that may be in the future, I'm down for it. I'm ready for it. This actually, the podcast gave me more confidence in speaking, being projecting my voice or my opinion. And there's no backlash. I can say what I want to say. It's my opinion. I'm not wrong.
Right. Exactly.
So that gave me more confidence in being myself. I work at a barbershop, I cut hair all day, but for the most part, I just listen to people. I listen to someone's in my chair. You know what I mean?
You're a therapist.
Yeah, so for me being the opposite end, giving my vocal opinion, that's huge for me. That's a big step for me. And like I said, I just want to focus on my personal business, which is Miguel's Riverside Barbershop. It's Miguel_Riverside Barbershop on Instagram, and that's pretty much where I'm kind of. Mainly on.
Jim, what's the address?
105 Market Street, Bristol, PA.
If you guys don't know the address by now, I don't know. It's, but yeah, and then same thing, with this whole podcast, thanks for Jim for, just promoting the heck out of the barbershop, promoting everything we do here, every event that we do here at the shop. We have, obviously, it was multiple family businesses in one unit. So that's where we're blessed for all that. Obviously, the blessed line. We're just, I'm not nervous on what's going to happen next. I'm just excited. But what's going to happen next, I feel it's going to be way bigger and grander than what we already have now. So
I love it.
That's all I got to say.
Gabe?
So now it gives me time to focus on my SoundCloud rap career.
Nice.
G-Money.
The G-Man. No, but I'm just excited because I have a whole new set of skills now that we can use towards something else. I'm
ready
just
to
curious what else we can do with this now. Now that I understand I can jump into something new and figure it out and make it work. So.
And nobody can take that from you. What you learned on your own was through just sheer experience, and nobody can take that from you. No doubt.
Yeah, I think to all that point, when you have a little bit of we're gonna have a break essentially for the first time in a while, it also allows you to clear your mind and then maybe generate additional, more creative ideas. Sure. Whereas in my mind, I'm thinking, obviously I have my career going, family, and then the podcast and the Blessed Lifestyle part. That's a lot to this, whatever.
Sure.
So the creativity part, you sort of it hinders. And so you can't really open up to too much because you need to stay focused.
Yeah.
And so that's what I'm really hoping for, to, release some of the creative juices that I have flowing. Obviously expand the brand, and some other things. I do have already, the juices have been flowing, so I do have some other ideas.
But just if it involves us, give us a breakdown.
Yeah.
At least give us a month off. Spring break. Well, I'll take a spring break.
Yeah, we got the summer's ours. We're gonna definitely be the boys this summer for sure. And then obviously my handles are at Blessed Life, BL3 SSEDLIFE, at Rotated Views. We're still gonna publish this and still share this, so there's still content there. And then the shows live on forever, right? And then my personal's at Mr. Jimmylee Velez. So follow us there. And then I think the last question is there anyone you'd like to thank or acknowledge? I think it's super appropriate, I guess, here to say now we have family members sort of trickling in to sort of celebrate, because that's what this is. Is just honestly just thanking the crew for, one, believing in me, believing in the dream, believing in the podcast, but thanking the family that sort of put up with a lot of this stuff, and their minds could have been nonsense, could have been awesome, could have been horrible, could have been great. I don't know. But hopefully it was, at some level, it had a positive impact. And then, because they're like, it's interesting because it's like, you don't want, and that's the reason why I work so hard on it, because I know that everyone here was pulling themselves away from their families, right? And so for me, it was a lot of pressure to create the content and give that quality that I wanted to give anyway, and hopefully that was reflected in those efforts. But we can still go around the horn. So heck, anyone you want to thank or whatever.
I want to give a grateful thanks to you and Gabe, Jim, putting this whole thing together. We helped him accomplish one of his dreams. Gabe, like you said, you had no idea what in the world you were doing. Thank you so much for putting this every week, busting your butt, staying up late night, editing, cutting people's voices out, or the cuss words, the cusses. And Goose, thank you so much for the shop, letting us use the shop here. And I want to thank my family, my wife, my kids, for, I'm always dipping out on Mondays or Tuesdays, dipping out for 2 hours or so. That's it. Manny, thank you for starting out with us. Yeah. Being there, I mean, you made some impact and stuff, right?
That'll be my thank you for the opportunity to be exposed to something different, and to have and especially my daughter, because she's waving at me right now, for you guys to provide the opportunity for our voices to live forever. I mean, technically our grandkids can listen to this, like, wow, they did that. Wow, that's what they sound like. Like, I can't do that for my grandparents. You know what I mean? But they have the opportunity to do so. So kudos to you, gentlemen.
Yeah, no, definitely a big thank you to Jim. Thank you for starting this off, for the creativity of all of this. Sometimes I wonder, I'm like, how did he come up with this topic? You would say whatever the topic was. I'm like, how the hell did he come up with this topic? And then I somehow know how your brain works. I'm like, yeah, I know how. Thank you for taking countless hours a week away from your family to put this stuff together. Same thing with Gabe. I remember Gabe said the first time he edited, it took him 8 hours just to edit it. Just a voice edit.
Wow.
And
I actually thought that was going to be the end. no lie. When you said it took 8 hours, I'm like, he can't do this all over. He can't do this on a weekly basis. And kudos to you for
not for nothing. It didn't feel like that, but I mean, it felt like I did a lot. But it was like that time flew by because I was just figuring it out. But it was like. Right. But eventually, it became efficient.
Well, it was like a new toy, so you were into it.
Yeah, exactly.
So, and then once like you said, you figure it out, got efficient with it, and know the
and able to apply it to other parts of it.
Yeah. No, thank you for doing all that, the audio, the video. Gabe is mostly on the behind the scenes, but he's so huge in the forefront. He's so huge up front. I appreciate you. Same thing with Heck. Taking time out from your family. Manny, same thing. Everyone just. And then I want to thank Lauren. When we first started, we were just dating. Now she's my wife.
Woo! Wow.
So 7 years, a lot. 7 years, a lot of things do change. My daughter, on Mondays, I take her to her lessons, and then I haul my butt here to meet up with you guys. So definitely it taught me being time efficient, scheduling, make sure I'm on time for things and whatever. But yeah, I just want to thank the whole crew, thank everyone for giving me the opportunity to be on the team. And
All right, Gabe.
So I guess first, obviously, thank you for allowing me to be a partner in all this. Anyway, and then for y'all just entertaining us to even like allowing us to even like do this with you guys. But then also, you know, just obviously the families just being supportive in general, just allowing it, especially you and your house, allowing us to take up space in your house for a good couple hours every, you know, at least once a week.
Shout out to Kel.
Big shout out to
just-
Kel
and just-
for
obviously-
dealing with us walking into the house.
Well, she's trying to take care of a young child.
Yeah.
Yes.
That was a lot.
But then, you know, just everybody.
Showers. Yeah.
And then just everybody who's come on in general, just like who want to be part of this in general, who spread the word and actually wanted this to grow bigger than we initially had it.
But it's like how this whole thing started. It was just conversations in the backyard that we like to talk about. So like that's what this was. It was just
Yeah.
we just got technology in front of us, but this is stuff that we would normally be doing.
Yeah.
I love it. Yeah, and I mean, I said it multiple times already. Gabe, thank you for obviously. I mean, you guys, the heavy lifting. It's funny because it's like, yeah, content. It's like, literally none of this would get published if it wasn't for Gabe, because I sure as hell still to this day have no idea how he publishes it. So clearly, this was a team effort. But you know, thank you guys for legitimately, for seriously being loyal and sticking through day in, day out, week in, week out, through the guest. I know there was sometimes we're all staring at each other like, where's this going? Depending on the topic. So, I mean, it's awesome. Yeah. And then obviously huge shout out to James and Cade, who have been featured multiple times. My mom, who's here now, who's always supportive of us, whether it's, you know, the barbershop, other things we have going on, Blessed Lifestyle brand, Rotated Views podcast, really obviously set the tone. And then obviously my wife, Kel, there was like countless times where she just left the house with the boys just so it was quiet and we didn't have that, you know, that feedback from the microphones, or showering the kids, or, you know,
Screaming children in the background.
Screaming children in the background and wanting peace. I mean, it's hard, man. It was truly it was a team effort. I mean, this is obviously not this is not an easy thing to do. So I'm extremely proud of the product that we produced. And that's why I say, like, I want people to look back and say, you know, think about a thing or something that you've done consistently for 7 straight years and put in that work, and you think of, it's like that appreciation of not only that, the quality and the content, and then the impact.
Most importantly, the huge shout out and thanks to the listeners.
Yeah.
They're the ones that motivate you. We see those numbers climb up, so it's like,
Yeah.
all right, people are listening, people are interested, so we keep it going. If those numbers didn't go anywhere or they decreased, it'd probably be a different story. But
We won't be here 7 years.
yeah, the biggest appreciation is to all the listeners that keep listening to us, and I'm sure they already know our boo-boos and our in-betweens, and like, oh, they forgot to bleep that one out. Like,
Yeah.
But yeah, it's
We get an email here and there.
it's to all the people that take the time out, download and listen. That's a huge shout out to them too.
Yeah, and just a quick word of encouragement, and then if you're listening to this and you're thinking about whether it's a podcast or a business, take the first step. I mean, how many times, especially I crack up with the Blessed Lifestyle brand, how many misprints I had, misspellings I had, just jack things totally up. And the funny part was, a lot of the people who were like correcting me, they actually told me out of love. It wasn't like they're even like trying to clown me. So it was like they want, like, so you're not going to be perfect. It won't be perfect. But if you just simply take that first step, and just going with a lot of passion, because you're going to need that for some level of momentum. But just really quick, if we could have the kids stand by or stand with your parent over here. So Cade, come over here.
No, but Danny.
James, come over here. Okay, so I'm going to read something. And the reason why I want to read it is because I just want, and I might have to pass it to someone else to read, but we talked about that this was going to be something that, who knows, this can go on for forever. And like something that your great grandkids can possibly hear them like, holy smokes, man, that's abuelito talking. And, you know, 100 years ago, and you got insight on the lifestyle that we brought. So
It's definitely a time capsule.
yeah,
Oh,
so
absolutely,
it's because it's a time capsule. I wrote a little something for the future. So I wanted to read it because obviously those that are surrounding us are the future.
You guys gotta go home.
So, all right, here we go. A message to the future. James, Cade, godsons, goddaughters, nieces, nephews, cousins, and future bloodline family members. I may not be around to witness the amazing individuals you'll become, but I am sharing this message to encourage you to continue the legacy of hard work and hustle that has been passed down to you. Your ancestors have worked tirelessly to provide for their families and create a better future. Their determination, resilience, and dedication to their craft are values that you should strive to embody in your own lives. Your family has a legacy of strength, resilience, and hard work. Use this legacy to your advantage, but don't be limited by it. You have the power to create your own success story, and it's never too late or too early to start. As you embark your own journey, remember that success is not handed to you on a silver platter. It takes effort, grit, perseverance to achieve your goals. Success is not a destination, it's a journey, and it's up to you to pave your own path. Success is not just about material wealth or fame. It's also about being happy, healthy, and fulfilled. Take care of your physical and mental health, cultivate meaningful relationships, and find your passion and purpose in life. Believe in yourself and your abilities. Never give up on your dreams. Set your sights high and never settle for mediocrity. Be sure to make ambitious goals, but also be realistic and practical. Don't be afraid to take risks and try new things. Failure is not the end, it's just a lesson to be learned and a chance to grow. Your education and career are important, but they are not the only measures of success. Make sure you also prioritize your relationships with family and friends, your health and well-being, and your contribution to society. Find something that you are passionate about and work towards making a powerful, positive impact on the world. You're capable of achieving great things, and your family is counting on you to carry on the legacy. Remember, you are a product of your ancestors' hard work and sacrifice. Honor that legacy by continuing the hustle, be loyal, be bold, be fearless, be resilient, and never give up on your dreams. Stay blessed. Be humble and give God the glory first. With love and admiration, your ancestors, Jimmylee and the crew.
Boom.
That's it.
All right, so James, you want to read this quote here? We like to end our shows with quotes, and the first one is by Paulo Coelho. Yep. Say it loud.
If you're brave enough to say goodbye, life will reward you with a new hello. Paulo Coelho.
Mm-hmm. And then William Shakespeare.
Farewell, God knows when we shall meet again, William Shakespeare.
The final show in this episode, the crew, the original crew, comes back together one last time to say thank you and farewell. We wrap the episode up with quotes from Paul Coelho and William Shakespeare. Bam!
Farewell.
Peace.